Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Hey there, are you sitting down? Good, because Wayfair's biggest sale of the season is here, and you can shop it right from your couch. It's Wayfair's Black Friday and July sale, and it's on now. Right now, you can score up to 80% off everything home at Wayfair. Snag outdoor furniture and decor at up to 60% off. Get area rugs for every room at up to 80% off. And refresh your sleep space with up to 60% off bedroom furniture. Plus, score amazing doorbuster deals and 24-hour surprise flash deals. And get it all with fast and free shipping on everything. Yep, even the big stuff. Right to your door. These are Wayfair's lowest prices of the summer. And did we mention they only last 5 days? So don't wait. Head to Wayfair.com today to score up to 80% off Wayfair's biggest sale of the season before it fizzles out. Shop Wayfair's Black Friday and July sale now through July 28th, only at Wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hey, former buddy, hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Heaps Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in a few minutes by one of our good friends, Ben Wilson, who does such an amazing job here at the network. This man does a little bit of everything as he does a great job with his play-by-play work when it comes to college baseball, college basketball, indoor football this time of year, and so much more. We're going to be chatting with him about a conference that he covers quite a bit with regards to his college basketball work, the WAC, as they lose Grand Canyon. What is the outlook now for the WAC? Because everyone's talking about the Mountain West now that Grand Canyon's there, and we're certainly going to talk about the Mountain West. We're going to be talking a little bit about what we can expect out of Grand Canyon for the upcoming season, but I do want to focus a little bit on the WAC. What can we expect out of some of these teams like Abilene Christian, Utah Valley, teams like that, and then he, much like myself, Ben, is from the great state of Wisconsin, so we do very much have to talk about what we're getting out there in the Big Ten, the coaching hires that have been made in the offseason, as, speaking of the Mountain West, one of those coaches from Colorado State, Nico Medved, he heads on over to Minnesota, so we're going to be taking a look at those coaching moves and so much more. So, nice little mismatch of things to talk about with our good friend Ben today, and if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you, for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larry ZM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. Then from there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds anywhere and at any time. EdgeBoost also gives you cashback rewards as you utilize their platform, and when you go to edgeboost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That's going to get you a $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's chat with Ben, who does a great job on so many different fronts. He's been doing a lot of late night hosting here at the network as well on the show Cashing Out and so many others. Does a lot with regards to Live Bet Saturday, Live Bet Sunday, and you're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at Ben, his first name, an underscore, then the last name Wilson, then another underscore, and the number 1 all together. And Ben, my friend, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hey, absolutely, Greg. And the thing is, I mean, we're in a very weird time, college basketball-wise. You know, for me, doing all the WAC stuff, this is going to be our final year coming up. So it's been a really bizarre offseason, to be totally honest. So trying to get everything prepared for what's going to be a really interesting upcoming season.
Yeah, and everyone's talking about the impact that the Mountain West is going to be having with Grand Canyon joining them, but what's the impact of the WAC? Because on Grand Canyon, year in and year out, they're always a favorite in this conference. I know that you've been to Grand Canyon's campus a few times. It's like going to a rave in terms of their home court advantage. It's absolutely wild, but this, in my opinion, makes the WAC one of the most open conferences in all of college basketball, and we could see a surprise team be able to make the NCAA tournament this year.
100%. And it's not just even your contenders, right? The teams that could have overtaken Grand Canyon in years past, most of them have also left. I mean, New Mexico State for years was really the only other team. It was a pretty good rivalry that developed between them and GCU, and then they go ahead and leave for Conference USA a couple of years ago. And even Sam Houston had a couple good years. They came in and were a number 1 seed 2 years ago. Now they're back. They left. They went back to Conference USA. Seattle is going to be leaving after next year. Utah Valley, California Baptist, those are all really good teams who are eventually the way out here. So that's what makes this final year of the WAC as we know it, right, really fascinating, because there's only going to be 7 teams. Most of the teams who are left are basically former transition teams from D1 now to the D2 level, have gone through their transitions, haven't had a ton of D1 success when you look at the Utah Techs of the world, and Southern Utah has been way down. So that's, I think, the thing to remember. It's not just the best team in GCU leaving. It's like 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in a lot of ways that had been very consistent and given this conference some really good basketball that are now also on the way out here.
Yep, absolutely. And I look at Utah Valley and Abilene Christian as perhaps being those top teams because Abilene Christian has made the NCAA tournament in the past. We recall they were able to knock off their interstate rivalry in Texas in the NCAA tournament a few seasons ago. They just play that distinct style where they generate so many turnovers. And then for Utah Valley, they've actually formed themselves into being a rock-solid team down low. And I think that these are really the 2 teams to be looking at because you've got Cal Baptist for another year before they move to the Big West, and they're probably going to need to rely upon some D2 schools coming up to the D1 level in order for them to have an automatic bid for the NCAA tournament after this year.
No, 100%. I certainly would think, and we still certainly don't know how the portal will shake out, but Utah Valley, to me, has been the most consistent team that has not gotten over the hump. I mean, they've really been just a team terrorized by the Orleans Arena. And it was 3 years ago, they had a 23-point lead in the semis against Southern Utah that they collapsed and lost that game by 1 in the last seconds. They've had opportunities time and again. They have had Grand Canyon right there, just haven't been able to get over the hump. But the way they have built that program up, I mean, I think a lot of people assumed post Mark Madsen they would really dip back down and need some time to claw themselves back up to relevancy. But I mean, Todd Phillips has done an awesome job, and he's such a well-regarded coach in the league circles. I think nationally was always one of the great JUCO recruiters as his time as a JUCO coach. So there are some legit guys for Utah Valley. Their issue is so many good players have come out of Utah Valley, gone to bigger places at the Power 4 level, and Aziz Bandago was the last one to do it. We know Tanner Toolson will do the same thing for UVU. So their biggest challenge is to find quality guys in the portal. But every year, I mean, we'll see them in March. It's a new roster. And yet they've got all these guys you've never heard of from the JUCO level, even some D2 guys that Coach Phillips is able to find and develop really well in a short period of time. So I still have them as my preseason favorite. I mean, Abilene Christian has, as you mentioned, Greg, a super distinct style. I mean, they've led the country in turnovers forced 3 of the last 5 years, but outside of that NCAA tournament run in the COVID year, it hasn't really led to anything because they just don't have the offense. And that's the big question for Brett Tanner. Can he finally get some development going on the offensive end that has really eluded them? And that's been the huge missing piece for ACU that, until I see it a little more consistently, I'll probably have some healthy skepticism that they can get there. But their style at the same time is a very good conduit for success at a format like WAC Vegas.
Yep, absolutely. And when you've got a style like that, being able to prepare for that on the fly is just so difficult, especially if you face them in the non-conference portion of things. As Ben Wilson, who does such an amazing job here at VSIN, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And how about if we do talk about the team that left the WAC a few weeks ago? That'd be Grand Canyon. And I think the big intrigue is, how are they going to deal with this step up in competition? Because let's call it what it is. Right now, we're scrambling as to who's going to be able to win the WAC this year. I'm in agreement with you. If I had to pick someone right now, it would be Utah Valley. But when you go up to playing up against UNLV, when you're playing against San Diego State, Boise State, all those teams, it's a big rise in competition. And Grand Canyon has been very solid in non-conference play over the last few years. Last year was a little bit more wobbly, but they found their footing when it came to WAC play. But I do think that for this Grand Canyon team, it's going to be so intriguing to see what they do now that the conference schedule is going to be a gauntlet for them night in, night out.
And no more of just these one-off, huge get-up-for-it games, right? And that was always the case when they'd face San Diego State and Arizona State and some of these other bigger schools. Well, now that's kind of your new normal, not necessarily every night in league play, but still Mountain West, big step up in class. And I think there's a lot of question marks around what this GCU team will look like considering all that they're losing. And, it was a really odd year in 2024-25, Greg, because they brought back basically everybody besides Gabe McLaughlin, who had not been a leading scorer. He was in a lot of ways like a six-man at some point and then was kind of their veteran, sort of do-it-all glue guy. But I thought his loss was way more impactful than maybe we would have thought at first, because they had Ty and Grant Foster back. They had Ray Harrison. They had all these really good pieces that on paper you would have thought they'd have won that league a year ago by 5 or 6 games. And not only did they not win the league, I mean, they weren't even the 1 seed, and they were we came out of that tournament going, man, they're not nearly the team they were in 24 when they were a 12 seed, won a first round game, had a big upset and showed that they were a legitimate contender to make a second weekend in the tournament. They took a huge step back last year. So I think this is a huge season for Bryce Drew, besides just the move of conference, right? Because they just did not have the right fit with pieces last year. And now they're really going to replace a lot. I just am fascinated to see who he gets, because he certainly has a lot of pull, a lot of sway, but it seemed off the team chemistry to me watching him in person last year. And that is a really hard thing to get right with a lot of these quick fix portal sort of situations. So that's the bigger thing I'm looking at than even the step up in class to the Mountain West.
Yep, absolutely, and I'm right there with you. I thought that it was a little bit janky for them last season. It was clearly a little bit of struggle, and I think that the Mountain West in general is going to be really interesting, because San Diego State, they have Magoon Gwath right now deal with injury. We don't know what his status is going to be towards the beginning part of the season. Colorado State, they obviously lose their coach, Nico Medved, which I thought that was a great hire by Minnesota, by the way. Minnesota Gophers seem that they need some positive momentum when it comes to college basketball, but Boise State seems like they might be a little bit down this year, and it feels like the Mountain West might be very much out there for the taking, and it feels like you might not necessarily have that top 40 team unless if it's going to be San Diego State, but I think that there's going to be a lot of top 75, top 80 teams, with perhaps UNLV being a little bit of a surprise.
Sure thing. I mean, certainly know there's a lot of pedigree there on Josh Pastner's point of view, and he's still been very much in the mix in the game, even being a TV analyst these last couple of years as a studio guy.
A good one, too.
And a very good one, yes. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see that be a sort of not a complete night and day turnaround, because it's not like UNLV was that far off with Kevin Kruger. They struggled with depth. They just didn't have enough bodies. He couldn't recruit at a high enough level to keep them in a position where they could handle that sort of gauntlet. And from covering them, Greg, they were a team that would show spurts, right? They would look really good for, a spot game here against the San Diego State, or, they'd come up big in a road game like at a Utah State, and you're thinking, man, this team could do some things. And then they just go through spurts where injuries would pile up and could never really get over that hump of being more than like a top, 80, 90 team and really threatening to have a legit case for an at-large. Because of the league being weaker, I don't know if I see it being more than just, from right now where we're at, this could obviously change, but more than, a 2-bid league. And I just think part of that is we'll see a lot of cannibalization. No team is going to come in with a super spotless record like the San Diego States of years past. And that has to benefit a team like UNLV, who will want to see it kind of be a 5-6 team race and feel like, hey, maybe we get this home tournament that they've always struggled in, it seems like, in the Mountain West tournament, and at least have a little bit better feel than maybe they've had in years past.
Yep, absolutely. I do think that it's going to be interesting to take a look at the landscape of the Mountain West, a conference that year in and year out, they've been getting 6+. They've been getting 3+ teams in the NCAA tournament. Just don't see that being the case for them this season, but we shall see. We have seen the Mountain West be able to do a nice job in non-conference play in the last few years, but losing all these coaches, I think, is going to be impactful for them. And a perfect segue, because Ben, much like myself, a man from the great state of Wisconsin, we both love ourselves some Big Ten basketball, so we're going to be chatting about that and a few teams that Ben is feeling bullish on coming into the season on the flip side here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Craig Peterson, now a part of the VSIN Family Podcast.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile. And you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. It is always great to have Ben Wilson aboard. He does amazing work here at VSIN. He does great work with his play-by-play work, whether that be in tennis, indoor football, college basketball, college baseball, you name it, he does it. Follow him on the old Twitter side checks at Ben, his first name, an underscore, his last name, Wilson, and then an underscore and the number 1 all together. And Ben, we were talking about the Mountain West in the last segment, and they did lose a coach to the Big Ten in Colorado's Nico Medved. He goes from Colorado State on over to Minnesota, and I do want to talk a little bit about the Big Ten and its overall landscape. I still think that they should be changing the name because there's no longer 10 teams out there in the Big Ten. There hasn't been 10 teams in the Big Ten since I was born, since Penn State was that 11th team. But that said, how do you take a look at the way that the Big Ten has revamped itself? Because I think that out of all the power conferences, I feel like the Big Ten has honestly had the best offseason with Michigan getting so strong, Purdue bringing back all their pieces, and all 3 hires, Indiana, Iowa, and Minnesota, I would give a minimum A- grade to, if not an A.
Sure, and I think the only reason for Indiana fans it wouldn't be an A is because the guy they wanted is at Michigan now, and they couldn't fire Mike Woodson last year because they'd already committed to him. So that was a whole sort of behind the scenes angle for Indiana that ultimately still get a really good hire. It's just maybe not the guy they would have originally wanted. Still though, I wouldn't say, as you point out, Greg, not a bad consolation prize there whatsoever. And even some of these West Coast teams, I'm fascinated to see how the travel adjustment turns, because that was such a big talking point. And from our day-to-day handicapping, there were a lot of spots to pick off. And Mick Cronin was the most vocal about it for UCLA and how that impacted his team. And you figure, USC was prime. You heard a lot of good things about them, and then they have their off season a little bit in flux now and wondering what will they do here more later in the transfer portal if there is time for them to get a kind of a splash guy to help replace some of those minutes. But I wonder just how these teams start to approach that, because it's sort of like, with anything, you have this big initial adjustment and there could be an overreaction in the betting market, and maybe it goes the other way. Maybe these teams figure out a solution and keep their guys out east longer. And it's not like we're pretending at this point like these kids are going to class anyway and that legitimate student athlete lifestyle anymore. So maybe these teams just embrace it. They do the 49ers thing and stay out east and try to play it up that way for a little longer. I think my big thing coming in is, especially with how deep this league has always been, you're going to need to see those sorts of adjustments made. And especially with these first year coaches, I would kind of bank on them maybe starting a little slower. And then as the conference slate gets into it, I would feel a little bit more confident in them, because it is a big adjustment and learning curve when you're thinking about a league that is literally coast to coast and has so many good, talented tournament caliber teams.
Yep, I'm right there with you, and I do think that is going to be a fascination in the Big Ten, and it just feels like the Big Ten, once again, they're going to be having, in my opinion, top 2 teams. Like, Purdue is that clear number 1 for me. Michigan, with bringing in Yaxel Lendeborg and what we saw of this team last year, now also having a real point guard in Elliot Kadu that should be able to reduce on the turnovers. They're my clear number 2, but after that, I think that the margins between like team number 5 and team number 10 might be super duper super duper low, and I do think that this is going to be a conference that, once again, it's going to produce a lot of teams that get in the NCAA tournament, but I think that they could be very much crowding like seeds 7 through 10, as I see a lot of like fringe top 25 teams, but outside of Michigan, outside of Purdue, I do think that there's a lot of meh in the conference.
Sure thing. And that also is bred by so much parity and good competition. And we've seen teams in years, especially last year, you think about how tough that league was. Maybe it didn't have the best resumes or the most spotless records, and guys got banged up as a result, but still had the ability to make deep runs in the tournament. And I really believe that's going to start to be the new normal. It's similar to how we're seeing it in college football too, where you don't have to go 11-1, 12-0 anymore, right, to make the college football playoff. Same thing sort of applies to me. Like, you can be a 23-9 team and still feel like you've got the goods and a legit shot to make an Elite Eight or a Final Four. And I just think if you're in the Big Ten, you got to embrace it, right? Because teams in the SEC have, and they've certainly had a ton of success while building up that league from a lower level Power 5 to now a top level Power 4. And I think that's the same blueprint here for the Big Ten. Just you got to embrace that sort of scheduling and take on more risks in the non-con to only bolster yourself and prepare yourself for that kind of stretch.
Absolutely. And this is just general because we've talked a little bit about the Mountain West, the WAC, the Big Ten. So we've done a little bit of everything. But Ben, I know that this is a little bit more of like football and baseball season for you, but I know that you take a look at a little college basketball just here in the offseason. Is there a team or two that you feel bullish about that you think might be able to have a good season that maybe not everyone's talking about and might be a little bit under the radar?
I think under the radar, I mean, it's funny, we're talking Big Ten, and that's where my mind is at right now. Maybe recency bias, we were talking about it, but thinking about where Iowa is at and, this transition now from the Fran McCaffrey era, right? And it might be a struggle in year one, just overall wins and losses, but I think that's going to be a pluckier team than people think. I just feel like anytime you get transition and turnover for a program that's in a really deep league, there tends to be a hesitation to really buying in or believing in that team, in any way, right? Going forward into the first year. So like that's a team for Iowa that I think I'm certainly like a macro buyer on. And then kind of in the same vein, I'd look at, thinking about West Virginia and, maybe that style is going to be painful to watch with the DeVries angle, right? Going from Drake and everything that comes with that and these 53-49 games that Drake always played. But like newsflash, that style works. I mean, you're going to win a lot of games with that. And with how rugged the Big 12 is anyway, how physical that league is, I do expect that to work really well. So those would be a couple teams I haven't heard a lot of buzz on here in the offseason, in different classes, so to speak. But I definitely believe they will be in better positions to compete right away, maybe relative to what the market is going to expect out of them.
And myself being a Division III guy, watching Ben McCollum go from the Division II level up to the D1 ranks, do what he did over at Drake last season, that warms my heart, and I'm right there with you, Iowa. If you want to talk about a team that's going to be looking 100% different and might be the biggest difference in styles that we've ever seen in college basketball, there you go right there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And Ben, I know you're getting set for the college basketball season as you do some great play-by-play work out here on the West Coast with regards to that sport, but I know you're doing some indoor football. I know that you're doing some tennis. You do great hosting over here at VSIN and so much more. So love to get people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, 100%. And always great to be on with you, sir. Ben_Wilson_1. And yeah, getting excited here for football season ramping up. A lot of VSIN hosting right now. And soon enough, it will be time for the hoops as well.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great time. And Ben, he covers just so many things and he does so well. And every single time he joins me, lends incredible insight. So big thanks to Ben for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSIN family of podcasts. And if you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And if you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I am with you guys every single day on this podcast, regular season and off season. Expect some more conference previews coming up in the next few days as well. We have to get you guys all squared away on those, as we did a lot of them in the last 10 days. Spent a little bit more silent these last few, but certainly we're going to be getting a lot more of those taken care of here now that we know what these rosters are going to be. So I am always thankful that you guys are with me. Glad that you guys were listening today, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.